Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready for this one? Today, we're going to get a little personal. Well, not too personal, but we're going to dive into something that a lot of people wonder about, maybe even get a little embarrassed about. But there's absolutely no shame in this game. Today, it's all about masturbation.
Definitely no shame in it at all.
But more specifically, what's going on inside that amazing control center we call the brain when we, engage in a little self-love.
Yeah, the science is truly fascinating.
So we're cracking open a Health Talk podcast episode with a neurology and mental health expert, Dr. Frank, who really lays it all out there.
Oh, I love Dr. Frank. He makes this stuff so accessible.
Totally. And for this deep dive, we're going to focus on the brain chemistry, like what's actually happening up there when things get, Dr. Frank dives into these chemicals called dopamine and endorphins, which are released during masturbation. And I know those are the good feeling, like happy chemicals.
Right, the feel-good chemicals, exactly.
But can you break it down a little further for us? Like what's really going on with those chemicals?
Okay, so imagine this. There's a pathway in your brain called the mesolimbic pathway, and you can think of it like a reward system. When you do something pleasurable, like having an amazing meal, laughing so hard you cry, or, masturbating, it triggers this pathway.
Okay, so it's like a little party in the brain.
Yeah, kinda. Sensory nerves send signals that basically say, hey, this feels good, and that activates the mesolimbic pathway.
Got it. So what role do dopamine and endorphins play in this brain party?
All right, so first up, dopamine. Dopamine is all about pleasure and motivation. It's what makes us want to repeat behaviors that make us feel good. It's like the brain's way of saying, hey, do that again.
Makes sense. So dopamine is like the life of the party. What about endorphins?
Endorphins are the chill vibes. They swoop in and bring on this wave of euphoria, and they actually act as natural painkillers, which is pretty cool.
Wow, so it's like a double whammy of feel-good chemicals. No wonder it feels good.
Exactly. But here's where things get interesting. What happens when you hit that reward button in your brain over and over and over again?
That's a good question. Does the brain just keep getting happier and happier?
Not necessarily. There's this concept called desensitization. Think of it like developing a tolerance. If you keep experiencing those intense dopamine rushes, your brain kind of gets used to it and needs more and more stimulation to reach that same level of pleasure.
Oh, so it's like anything else. Too much of a good thing can
backfire a bit.
Exactly. It's like if you eat chocolate every day, eventually it's not as special.
Yes, exactly. You start to crave more and more to get that same feeling, and that can spill over into other areas of life. Like, you might find it harder to enjoy simple pleasures because your brain's feel-good baseline has shifted.
That makes total sense. Dr. Frank mentioned some other potential downsides too, right?
Yeah, definitely. If masturbation becomes excessive, it can lead to fatigue.
Makes sense. You're burning energy after all.
Right, and some people might feel physically weaker even. And then there's the emotional side. Some individuals might experience feelings of guilt or shame, especially depending on their upbringing or cultural beliefs. It's important to remember that everyone's experience with this is unique.
Totally. It's like anything else, right? Moderation is key.
100%. And Dr. Frank emphasizes that masturbation in and of itself is not bad at all, right?
No, not at all. He was really clear about that. It's perfectly normal and natural.
Absolutely. It's a healthy part of human sexuality, a way to explore your body, manage stress, and can even help you sleep better.
So really, the takeaway is that masturbation is fine and actually beneficial in a lot of ways, but like most things in life, it's about finding that balance.
Right, a healthy balance.
Knowing when it's adding to your life and when it might be taking away from other things.
When it starts impacting your work, your relationships, or causing you distress.
Exactly. That's where being self-aware and understanding the science behind it can really help.
Totally. Knowledge is power.
It really is. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've learned about the amazing brain party that happens when we masturbate.
The dopamine rush, the endorphin chill vibes.
All of it. And we've talked about how too much of a good thing can sometimes lead to some not so good consequences. But the main point is, masturbation is normal, natural, and nothing to be ashamed of.
It's all about finding that sweet spot where it enhances your life.
Absolutely. So dear listener, now that you've got the science, what are your takeaways? How does this new knowledge impact your own views and choices? We'd love for you to reflect on all this amazing info. And remember, if you have any questions or want to explore this further, there are tons of resources out there. Until next time, stay curious.